Can I get a motion to adopt this evening's agenda?
Move it up.
Second.
Second, anybody? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Approval of the minutes from the May 12, 2021 meeting. Is there any corrections or additions or anything? Would anybody like to make a motion to approve the minutes? Second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Item number 4 is 21 Jefferson Street, Berlin Commons. Applicant Brett and Megan Ames requesting a revision for amplified music. Like the come up front, please. Hey, Dave, I have a quick question. In the town code, what is the time for cutoff for live music or amplified music or any music?
Well, repetitive noise, really, it's 9 p.m.
9 p.m.?
Yep.
Okay.
On weekdays. Sunday, 5 p.m. on Sundays.
What time does it
5
start? What time does it start?
Weekdays, 7:30 a.m., like for construction or any kind of noise, repetitive noise. And Saturdays also 7:30. And Sunday, I think it's 9 to 5 Sunday. You can have any kind of noise like that. Under the town noise ordinance. There isn't anything that specifically talks about amplified music in the town code.
Okay. Okay, you want to tell us what's going on?
Sure. So we opened at the Berlin Commons recently, and we've had, I think we're building some success there and some foot traffic. The Beach Festival would have been a great day, of course, except for the rain. It rained us out. We currently have been open Thursday through Saturday, so 3 days a week. Thursday and Friday would be 4 to 9 p.m. And then Saturday we've been open 2 to 9 p.m. Specifically requesting the music as far as amplification. We've tried musicians, just individual musicians with either a guitar or a violin or a keyboard, and it's just been tough to hear them, even on the small property that we have. They tried at the tip of the triangle, they've tried otherwise, but the cars and the other delivery vehicles kind of drown it out, and it's actually hard to hear that even when you're at a nearby table. So when we are talking about amplification, we're talking about a single person, maybe a duo, not like a full band. We're not thinking that, although other places nearby do have those larger bands, larger performances, and they have the same zoning. So really just a level playing field with our neighbors and mending that. We have spoken with the neighbors. Actually, a lot of them have been our customers recently, and they've expressed a lot of support for the property. They like the property. They like what we've done to it. And so we asked them about music, and they said they didn't see a problem with it as long as it was over early enough that it wasn't a noise hazard or anything like that.
Did you, last time you had 89 emails in favor, did you get any
We didn't get any
documentation
requests.
this time, or? No?
No,
Okay.
unless they.
No, I hadn't received any comments at all.
Okay. All right. Do you have any questions, or?
Is it monitoring the volume of the music? How long is it going to be?
Yeah, the volume of the music, is that until somebody complains, or how does that, or if somebody
It's
complains?
usually complaint driven, and it's through the police department.
Okay, I called the police and asked, and there have been no complaints since you've been there, so, just to see. Apparently nobody can hear it anyway, but.
I guess the only other, you said the people around you, I guess is really just referencing Land Hotel, I assume? Is that the only, what else?
Tiki Tim's,
Do they have music out there?
yep, so I mean, we've heard of them.
Behind the Globe, Tiki Tim's,
The
that would
Globe
be a
Inn
little,
and Tiki Tim's would be the closest ones,
They have live amplified music there?
yes.
I didn't know that.
What is that based off of? Is that part of their license or that is?
Liquor license.
And did they get that right away? Does it take a year for holding a license to get that right?
They go to a hearing of the liquor control board, but
Oh, yeah, they're not, I don't
But
think
they're
they're subject
very
to
different.
that.
Oh, I get that.
Yeah,
I
they're
get
not
that.
subject to that, they're subject to the town.
But did Tiki Tim's have the right to have amplified music day one, once they got their original license?
once they had the deck put on the side, yes. Because originally there was no deck on the side, on the south side of the building.
Well, the real rub here is the difference in licensing for this location and Tiki's. The liquor board's gonna get right on top of them if there are noise complaints. And so, in this case, somebody's gotta be right on top of them if there are noise complaints. And that's probably us, putting conditions on what we do. I mean, there's amplification, I mean, how many pieces do you want to have in a band? Are you willing to limit to 2 pieces of a voice and an instrument, or do you want 3 instruments and a voice, or what do you want?
That's a good question. What we've had so far is a single person with a single instrument. Well, I'm sorry, a guitar maybe and a harmonica, they might have had 2 instruments. I'm not looking for a rock band, I'm not looking for something very loud, we're looking for something just that people can hear and enjoy. So we've had a reggae person, we've had a violinist, we've had a keyboardist, and singers. So that's the style of what we're looking at.
So are you willing to state that that 3 pieces, including voice?
I don't myself, I'm not an expert in music, but that seems reasonable. It seems like about the
Well,
size.
yeah, I'm asking you what
Yeah.
you want, but you know, I just don't want to see a 4-piece, 5-piece band out there blaring that bass and being heard from anywhere in the immediate vicinity.
That's not our intention either.
I mean-
We're looking for it to still be very family friendly, still be just enough that the people on the property could hear it, not even the neighbors across the street or something like that. We're not looking to disturb anybody.
So you wouldn't have a problem if we put a condition on the approval that we would be the regulating authority, and if there are complaints to the police, then the board, this planning commission maintains the authority to call you back in and change the conditions of an approval.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
It's just a suggestion I'm making. 'Cause we don't have any other.
There's no other case, there's no other property like this. The other ones are all controlled by the licensing board. They're different because they're not.
We have live music at the farmer's market. That's not been a problem, and that's on a Sunday.
Well, that's in the middle of town center.
It's not in a residential area.
I mean, this piece of property is injecting well deep into a residential area.
Well, you do have, how many?
You have apartments adjacent to the farmer's market upstairs.
Yeah, you do.
And then you're gonna have that, if it was loud, you would have that echo, that ricochet off all the masonry buildings to residential areas, and that's not been a problem.
No, it hasn't. It hasn't been a problem, but I just want to anticipate in this case a problem. I think it's different in this location than it is downtown.
And I think, just like any, I've had them before with noise complaints and with amplified music, and usually it's somebody, they have a garage band, if you will, and they're practicing, so the neighbors complain. It gets complaint driven through the police department, and that's how we've enforced it.
That's correct.
We forced that to stop.
That's right.
So to me, you can certainly have a motion about the being the enforcing body, but I think that's unnecessary. I think it would be complaint driven through the police department or through my department. And then the police is probably going to come to me to write the summons. They're not going to write it themselves. They're going to stop it the night it's occurring if they think it's excessive.
Well, I think
And then they're going to come to me and ask me to enforce it.
I'm the last guy who I think attacked a garage band. And I went through the whole process and had to interpret the statute and get something done. And so I know what you're talking about, but this is different. This is a commercial establishment that we're approving acoustic music for. I can't see because my glasses are going.
Well, the town, the farmer's market is run by the town, so they've never come before us. They do, you're the town. So that's not the same.
And also, if I may, the way that the Berlin Commons is set up and the way that they have their live music set up, they intentionally put their stage at the top corner, and the amplification is projecting towards the commercial part of town. And I've been there several occasions. I was there when Xander was there, with the keyboardist, it was extremely hard to hear. And then when, I can't remember who was playing there, the violinist. We had to literally sit right under her just to hear her. And if you haven't been there, there are kids, there's always kids there. So I can almost guarantee that they're not going to have any type of loud music that's going to blare and drown out anything that's going on there. I mean, there's kids there almost every single day, including your own kids. And they're young kids, and they're just
What's that
having a
got to do with
ball.
amplified music, kids being there?
What was that?
What's that got to do with amplified music, kids being there? What's that got to do with it?
Kids, they're trying to bring families there. When you have loud music, families are not going to want
Maybe
to.
the families in the residential neighborhood don't want to be subjected to amplified music when they're trying to enjoy the quiet property that they live in their backyards or whatever. When they come home from work, they don't want to be forced to have to listen to that.
I disagree with this.
Megan, how many times do you think for the rest of the year you'll be having, just at the general guess, I mean, do you think you could have musicians that would want to have amplification?
Probably Friday and Saturday between maybe 5 and 8 p.m.
And like every weekend until it gets like October?
We had scheduled it for the every weekend, but then we stopped because it was hard to hear and we thought we were wasting our money.
I don't know that the amount of people or musicians would dictate how loud the music would be. It's how loud to turn the volume up. I don't know that the number of people are the issue. Would you be willing to have like a trial period? It's like say, you know, we would approve this for a trial period to the end of the year, and if there were no complaints, then you're good. Would that be something you would be amenable to?
We're not trying to make anybody upset in the town. We're
Right,
trying to do
right.
this all right, so.
I'd rather have a continuing oversight. Just-
We would.
Not just for the year, it's just you approve it under certain regulations. But we are the overseeing authority if there are complaints.
But the noise level is not dependent upon the people, it's a
I
decibel.
understand.
So
I get it.
unless we have some kind of measuring stick, it's not people, it's.
I'm measuring it by how many complaints we get. If there's a person with a home over there and they're having a problem with hearing this music, then they have a right to peace and quiet in their home.
And all they gotta do is call the police.
And that's all it does, do is
Come
call
back
us
to
and tell us we have a problem. It
Exactly.
doesn't have to be a police issue.
We're not gonna know unless we give it a
This is
chance.
a regulatory issue, not a police issue, in my view.
Exactly.
I'd rather not take the police into this
Well, as
one.
an attorney,
Police
that's
are
your,
gonna show up.
that's the,
Well, I know what the police have to do to try to prove noise, you know, it becomes problematic, and quite frankly, our statute is not as strong as it should be, and hesitate to take these cases to court because the court's not gonna buy it without some proof of noise. I want the regulatory authority, we got a complaint, we got a problem, just like the liquor board with a liquor license. We got noise complaints, we're gonna fix it. But from what I'm hearing from you, I don't anticipate a problem. I mean, I know enough about music and amplification. If you're actually aiming it towards where you're saying, you're not going to turn it up and have a grinding bass with pounding drums, then you shouldn't have a problem. It ought to be okay, in my opinion. But if there is a problem, I want to know it and I want to end it.
well, can we do a set amount of time to December 31st or something, or?
The motion you make, sure.
You mean that it would drop dead after that?
Yeah, if you had issues or whatever, you can readdress it or just.
I say we approve it.
Like
My,
you're all here?
just approve it and then
You
it's
have-
subject to our review,
Okay.
our oversight.
There you go.
Are you gonna limit the amount of people?
No, because I think that if they act in good faith, if they have
Yeah,
a four-piece
I agree.
band that's balanced and knows how to play music and knows what noise is and what music is, then we shouldn't have a problem.
You could have 5 violins up there and you'd hear it through town if people really whip it up.
That's correct.
And it wouldn't have to be amplified.
And I think you guys are smart enough to know what we're talking about here. If we hear you over on the residential street, there's gonna be a problem. And I'll admit, from my house, I can hear the hotel music sometimes when the wind's blowing right. I can live with that, but I don't want to hear you guys every weekend blaring something that I have to listen to every night. And neither do a lot of other people who live around this area. But I'm willing to be reasonable, because I think if you're a reasonable person, you can make this work. And I've been in favor of this project, because I like unique projects. And it's a public service this project is doing for the town, in my opinion. Because you have it open to the public.
And people have been using it.
Yes, they have been.
We get our notifications almost every day, people are there, and
I ride by every day. I take my bike ride, I come by every day.
And it looks great.
Yep.
we got a weed whack, but that's because we're trying to let the grass grow. We're gonna do it before the ribbon cutting.
Well, you all did a great job.
Anybody else have anything, or? I have one quick question. You said you were gonna have surveillance cameras there?
Mhm.
Did you catch the high-speed pursuit the other night, or not?
Yes,
Hmm?
yes, we woke up to it.
Oh, you did? Did you get it on camera so we can,
Yeah, it's somewhere on the cloud, somewhere.
okay.
Yeah.
Maybe I'd like to make a motion to,
I guess since I ran my mouth the most on this, I'll try to make a motion. I move that we allow amplified music at this location, trusting that the applicant will understand what we talked about here and be reasonable in the volume. And if there's any complaint or problem, that they will be referred to this planning commission and we'll reconsider whether we revoke your rights or not. We maintain the privilege of revoking the approval we're giving you if we have complaints. And I can tell you, one complaint will get my attention because I'm sympathetic to anybody who has their home and there being a nuisance is affecting their home. So keep the neighbors happy. That's my motion.
okay, real quick, is there anybody from the attendees out here like to speak about for or against? Anybody? Okay, would anybody like to second the motion?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed?
Aye.
It's 6-4, 1 against. Great, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Item number 5, site plan approval for 10103 Old Ocean City Boulevard. Applicant Forgotten 50 Distilling and PJF Real Estate LLC. Dave, do you have anything you'd like to open up with since we...
This is a site plan approval for location there on Old Ocean City Boulevard next to the American Legion across from the Bank of Ocean City. Former Chesapeake Utilities was like a utility shop for the gas company. If you're familiar with it, they're going to remodel the building. They have done a lot of extensive remodeling inside already to get ready for proposed use as a distillery and a tasting room out front. Slightly half of the existing building, which has not changed its footprint at all, is distilling area. The producing area is approximately 2,300 square feet, as you see from the plan. The front tasting area, just under 2,200 square feet, and a small outdoor seating area on the east side of the building. Previous to our meeting tonight, they came before the Board of Zoning Appeals, the applicants, to get a parking variance for a reduction in parking spaces. Our code would require, for this use, according to the square footage of the tasting area, 34 parking spaces. They were given a parking variance down to 25 parking spaces. Most of the area out front of the building, which is parking currently, has to be eliminated by state highway because they need to curb the area, which wouldn't allow access to that area, and have a curbed entrance onto the property. So no longer could you just, if you're familiar with the site, you can roll right out off the blacktop onto Old Ocean City Boulevard currently, and state highway wouldn't allow that. It's a state highway road and right-of-way, so they had a lot of input and restrictions on the owner. So the Board of Zoning Appeals granted them the reduction to 25 parking spaces, which is on the drawing that you see in front of you. So I think that's my summary.
Okay, it's like I say, I was here for the prior meeting, I watched, the only residential neighbor on the street is right next door to them, and he was all for everything. It's our former mayor.
Former Mayor, Mr. Williams, yes, sir.
He was all about it. Just real quick, just your rendition right here has the parking spaces out front. Is it planned to go to grass where the spots were supposed to be, or what's that going to be? You know what I mean? Right here.
The idea was to add some green space after they pulled the property out, after they pulled the parking out of the front. The renderings could be redone because we just got the letter, in the final letter today from SHA, so.
Okay, I was just curious. Like to go ahead and do your presentation already.
Steve, identify yourself for the board, please.
Steve Engel, Principal of Vista Design.
And you prepare the renderings that's being considered by the board right now.
That's correct.
Explain to the board the redevelopment of the site, please.
So just to get everybody familiar with the property location, this is the proposed distillery, Bank Ocean City, American Legion, and the Williams property. Site consists of about 0.67 acres. As Dave said, SHA is going to require a channelized entrance to 25 parking spaces. The building's going to be pretty much divided into two parts, the area for the distillery and the area for tasting. We'll have a small outdoor area. Part of the SHA improvements includes a sidewalk out front, and there's a small seating area out front.
Right now, there is no sidewalk up front, is that correct?
That's correct.
And there's roughly 12 parking spaces utilized out front, even though they are not striped. Historically on this property, there have been 12 parking spaces out front, and as Chairman Denny just indicated, because State Highway is requiring this commercial entrance and also the addition of the sidewalk as part of this plan, those 12 spaces are no longer available, correct?
That's correct.
You also described the outside area, which is reflected in blue, and that's going to be utilized for what? The blue area.
It's going to be outdoor seating area.
Okay. And as Mr. Denny also asked about, what are you going to do to the front of the building where the parking spaces presently exist? I think you indicated there's going to be some landscaping done out there, some shrubbery.
Exactly. We want to add some green space out there and get rid of some of the asphalt, being that's not going to be used for driving.
Okay. Should the planning commission look favorably on this plan, what is your time frame to begin development activities? What your anticipated time frame?
We'd like to try to start immediately.
And do you have an estimated time frame once you start, how long it would take you to deliver the site as reflected on that plan?
If everything is approved as is or close to as is, we have building materials that we've been stockpiling because of all the shortages, so we're pretty much ready to go.
And the rendering up on the screen, does that accurately reflect what the appearance of the building is?
Yes, outside of the parking spots out front, which is obviously the last one
Right.
change from SHA, yes, that is going to be the front facade, that's our proposed front facade
And
for the
that
building.
front facade of the building, the top part where it says Forgotten 50 Distilling, what type of material will that be?
So that's currently in place, we've already got a permit for that, so it's all already blank.
Okay. And is that brick on those columns out front?
Yes, that's going to be classic red brick. Which matches there's also similar brick columns on the inside of the building, and it is the same color and texture of those bricks to try to match.
The darker gray color on the front facade, is that also hardy plank?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Does, other than the parking variance that the Board of Appeals just granted, Steve, does this site plan otherwise comply, to your knowledge, with the Berlin Code?
It does.
No further variances or special exceptions would be necessary?
No.
Okay.
It's all real brick, nothing, no
Yes,
photos
sir.
or anything?
Steve, you can do better than I. We have the handicap parking on the east side. That's in gravel. Doesn't
Well,
that-
the handicap spaces will have to be.
Right, but it doesn't indicate it here. It seems to me like it's just part of the grade existing gravel thing.
You just haven't got to that.
Okay,
design
okay.
yet.
Yeah, it needs, you're right, Ron, it needs to be smooth, not.
Right, right. And your rendering has in front of the building, on the site plans, there's, where the outdoor areas, there's a fence or something? There's no,
That will be removed.
okay, because we've had a problem with fences down the street.
Yeah.
We didn't want to go through that again.
Yeah, no, the whole front fence will be removed on, like, and once it's,
If you look on the
But
site
when you
plan,
have a fence, are you proposing a fence? There's little red squares like proposed.
yeah, that's gonna be the small little decorative, wrought iron fence that you see there. On the rendering.
I see the rendering,
Oh, It's the
Ron.
same thing as you see on the front?
Yes.
Okay.
see,
Okay.
Ron, if you look on the first page, this note here says that fence is to be removed, that's that white
Right, I see that.
slatted fence.
Because this doesn't indicate what's replacing it.
Right, it's shown on the,
Small arm fence.
it's shown on the rendering, but it's shown being removed on the site.
Okay, got it.
Is that also to the left side, where that fence with the bush in front of it right now? That fence is gone already, isn't it?
Partially, and that's good, just for aesthetic reasons alone, that's what we're doing.
Anybody have any other questions? Or? You? No? Anybody like to make a motion to approve or disapprove? Or?
I'll make a motion to approve the site plan for Jonathan Distilling.
Anybody like a second? Second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Good luck. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Send me a,
Yeah, I'll call you.
thank
Okay, item number 6 is site plan approval, Maple Avenue, Maple Avenue, Blue Lemon LLC. Mr. Cropper, you with them also, or you just? you just,
setting up front.
Hey Dave, can you give us a quick,
Yeah, this is a site plan approval for a condominium townhouse project over on Maple Avenue. It's a combination of 3 parcels over there in a residential district. It is zoned R3. They had previously gone last month before the Board of Zoning Appeals to get, to be authorized to put townhouse, multifamily dwellings in the R3, which is required by our code. And they also got a reduction in the required width of each condominium townhouse unit. Our code called for a minimum of 18 feet. And in accordance with their site plan for each building, they got a reduction to 16 feet for each, the width of each individual townhouse unit. There's a total of, correct me if I'm wrong, 33 townhouse units on the property. And I believe it is, don't quote me, it's been a while, 4.7 acres, is that correct?
4.5 acres.
4.5 acres. To be called, these would be fee simple condominiums, not rental units. So they would be housing units for people to purchase. And the property, as you see, they titled it Mapledale in accordance with Maple Avenue.
All right, you'd like to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Bobby, just identify yourself to the board, please.
I'm Bobby Kitchens, I would be the developer of this project.
And seated to your right,
Russell Hammond, the surveyor prepared the sketch plan.
the description of this plan as described by Mr. Engelhardt is accurate, is that correct?
Yes.
The material that you intend to utilize for the exterior of these buildings is what, Bobby?
Vinyl siding.
And your hope is to market these units for basically very reasonable. They're not intended to be extremely expensive units, is that correct?
Correct.
I don't want to call it workforce housing, but that's the target audience you're looking for.
If they can afford rent, this would be an ownership opportunity.
Okay. And if the board were to look favorably on this request, your anticipated beginning of construction date would be what?
I would like to think in less than a year. I would begin engineering everything immediately.
And are you intending to develop this site in one fell swoop or in phases?
I would probably do it in phases, 2 clusters at a time, depending on market conditions.
But if the demand is there, you will build as the demand justifies.
Correct.
As Mr. Engelhardt indicated, I came before the Board of Appeals with you for the required special exception and the reduction in the unit width. Other than that, does the site plan comply with the code in all other respects?
Yes.
The main route to access this site is off Maple Avenue, is that correct?
That is correct.
And the square footage of these units?
Approximately 1,400 each.
And are they 2 and 3 bedroom?
They're currently designed as 2, but I will try to incorporate 3 bedrooms as well.
And how many baths?
2 full baths and possibly half bath.
What about landscaping?
On this plan, we're showing the basic landscaping around there, and as the buildings would be built, each building would get more.
Each cluster?
Yes, each cluster would get more landscaping around.
So the overall project is going to have landscaping, but as each cluster is completed, then that cluster will have
It
landscaping?
will be enhanced.
Okay. The internal drive aisles, everything's going to be paved, correct?
Yes.
Paved, striped?
Yes.
With a single point of ingress and egress off of Maple Avenue. You won't be able to exit this site onto any other roadway other than Maple Avenue, correct?
Correct.
Is this site wooded now? Is there any wooded forest on the site?
No, it's basically open, very minimal, little.
Okay, so any vegetation will be added?
Correct.
Because there's none there to begin with?
Correct.
Okay.
David, where is this in relation to the project that's being revamped over there?
The Willows, if you're looking at the drawing, the Willows is at the end of Maple Avenue down here. And you're coming down Maple Avenue and it's at the end of Maple Avenue. You pass this on your right heading towards what used to be Wolf Terrace is now called the Willows. So this would be on the, I guess you would call it the southwest side of Maple Avenue, west side of Maple Avenue.
Mr. Kitchens, are you willing to stipulate in a possible approval that you will not turn this into a rental unit project?
I My intention is to build this as townhouses, get my money and get out.
The road to hell was paved with good intentions. What we need is insurance that you won't turn this into a rental project.
I am not turning it into a rental project.
That would be all right, stipulated in the approval.
Yes.
Let me ask a question though. Does that, no, if you sell these units, are you intending that if somebody buys a unit, they can't rent it?
No, what happens after that is,
Okay, that's a whole different animal.
Yeah, that's where, thank you.
Okay.
Because I can't tell you who's gonna rent a unit.
no, I understand that, I understand.
But you don't want this to be a rental project?
That's correct.
Has there been any site work done already or anything, or?
No.
She came to my attention today about some potential flooding issues down there, and we can
Oh, yes.
address that, or
Yes.
she has some,
Maple
pictures.
Avenue has had it. Been great impacted by the construction work that's going on there now. And we relied on the engineering of the town to make it right. The storm water management problem never been addressed. It's flooded, that area is flooded every time it rains. The property owners. And some of the houses now have water damage. All the water from Flower Street runs down Maple Avenue. Even from Elizabeth Street, curves round and comes down, goes down Maple Avenue. It's so congested down there because when they first started that project that's there now, they brought in tons and tons of dirt, cement. They took out all the landscaping that would have out the water and it elevated so high, it's just a river there when it rains. And no more construction work, as far as I'm concerned, need to go on that street, because that street was just there to accommodate those 12 houses or more that was there in the beginning. It was never meant to have this massive construction that's going on now. And it's too congested down there. And just like he said he would build the place and he's ready to get out, yes, then we're left with the problem. Which the problem has never been solved. And we, like I said, we relied on the experts and the engineers from town that they would see this coming up. The water, the ditches, not maintained, right down there now, still mud in front of this one site down there.
I'm not familiar with this other project. Dave, what's
right here, I have pictures, you want to see it?
I wouldn't mind, because I'm just unfamiliar with the project you're talking about.
That's the Willows at the end there, they're redeveloping the
They're
process.
constructing stuff down there right now.
And part of the problem down there
Here you are.
is with the Maryland Department of the Environment's requirements, the storm drains that are at the end of Maple Avenue that are to drain Maple Avenue and drain the Willows site, according to MDE regulations, they have to be covered in silk fabric while that project is underway, while dirt's being moved. And I'm sure Mr. Hammond's familiar. I know Mr. Casio is. So the water, it doesn't have anywhere to go as fast as it's building up. So we have been out there several times, but we can't get MDE to agree to let us open up those storm drains because they're trying to avoid any runoff from that Willows site going into the storm water system. So in other words, water backs up because they don't want more dirt in the stormwater pipes, the underground stormwater pipes. There's also a swale at the end of, or a ditch, if you will, that privately owns, not owned by the town, that hasn't been maintained. Hasn't been maintained in 40, 50 years, and it's not town property, it's private property, so it needs to be cut or cleaned out or something to help it flow to the east at the very end of Maple Avenue, which is, a third of the way down the street from.
And that street wasn't designed for all this impact.
Understood. But see, the design for stormwater management that the Willows and this project will have to get approved. They're supposed to keep the water that's created on their site. That's what all of the approvals are for. that project isn't finished. I know it's been wet there on Maple Avenue for many years, but I do agree with what Ms. Purnell's saying, that currently there's more of an issue there in this year's season. Last year's rainy season was even worse, but the construction hadn't really started yet, so the situation has been made a little bit worse right now, but it won't be that way forever, but.
It's been that way. It should have been taken
Understood.
care of before that project started.
Yeah, yeah.
And with another, we can't, or maybe Avenue can't stand another project on that street.
I was looking at the beach over there.
Dave, you said those drains are still currently covered and stuff?
Yeah.
And
They're covered.
so basically they always will be until that's complete, and then that
So
will keep
when
going
that,
on.
when that project's finished, then Maryland Department of the Environment approves the as-built, which are the drawings that everything is built according to the plans and functioning according to plans. So in other words, when they're walking out of there, when all the pavement's done and striping and everything's done, the plantings, that's when that fabric comes off of those drains. So it's going to be a slower draining area till the end of that project.
It should have been done before they even started the project.
It can't be. It's done after the project.
I'm talking those ditches, nowhere for the water to run off.
But that's the property owner's responsibility, not the town's responsibility.
Property owners supposed to clean up the ditches.
The ditches, yes, ma'am.
The ditches that are on there, because it's not a tax ditch,
No,
it's
it's not on
their
the
own
property.
ditch.
I'm sorry?
It's not a tax ditch, it's their own swale and their
Right,
own.
it's not a county tax ditch either, to my knowledge, but it's not a town ditch.
Well, and one, I want to thank Mrs. Purnell for sharing the pictures, I certainly was unaware of that. The difficulty is if the Willows project is creating that condition, then the developer of the Willows project should cure that condition, but it shouldn't prevent the owner of this property from being able to develop this property as it's zoned if this site plan complies with the code, which it does, and it's zoned for this development, and they get an approved stormwater management plan that they implement and construct correctly, the owner of the Willows or the developer of the Willows shouldn't be able to prevent the development of this site. I mean, that's basically imposing a moratorium on development on Maple Avenue, and that wouldn't be fair to this applicant, unless the town council wants to impose a moratorium.
Well, we
But
heard the same argument, what you're saying now.
What's that?
We heard the same argument when this place was being built, what you're saying.
Yeah, but this place is the one creating the problem. What I'm saying is, if that developer is creating the problem that I see in those photographs, then that developer should cure those problems. But this property is zoned for this development, and I don't think, quite honestly, it's appropriate to disallow this project to go forward because a developer on another property down the road is causing a flooding problem. I mean, it's two different properties, and this property owner is not contributing toward that flooding issue. So that's my position.
Was the flooding a problem before the
Yes,
Willows project?
yes.
Okay. And is, when the Willows project is complete, is the issue, it's a little outside my realm of understanding, do we expect the issue to be better or worse than it was pre-Willows construction?
It will be even better because they'll fix the problem that's already there.
So,
I would say it should be better, but I don't know that. And the reason I say that, because you're going to have new infrastructure there because of the new buildings and the increased area closer to Maple Avenue. So,
But there's going to be stormwater components constructed as part of the Willows project that don't presently exist. And the whole purpose of that stormwater plan is to deal with the volume of water that already exists and the stormwater created from that project. But until those improvements are completed, meaning the stormwater plan is constructed, then the proper management of that stormwater can't take place. It's taking place once the stormwater plan for that project is completed. correct?
Correct.
It doesn't mean that the project isn't legally responsible for the damage.
Oh, I don't disagree with that. I'm just saying that that developer's responsible.
Not for false,
I agree with Ms. Purnell's concern completely regarding that other project, but I don't think.
I don't know what they can do in the interim to avoid the flooding, but that's their problem.
That's exactly. And I'm not an engineer, but there's usually.
And they have taken steps. They brought in the huge, I don't know the technical term, but they're the huge round sponges. They look like a long snake, 80-foot long snake. They put them along the silk fencing at their expense to try and help. That's what the developer has done.
We can tell that to the residents. We have the residents right here. Not just to what we're saying, because that road was never fixed from to get it right to even accommodate the construction that's going on now. That construction should have never been started until that was fixed.
Well,
And we relied on the engineers and the town to do that, because we're not experts.
The road will be done last when you.
It should have been done first, because it was flooded even before that project got there.
Well, okay, but in general, just as a construction principle,
That just made it worse.
when the road is done last, when heavy equipment and trucks and deliveries are done rolling over it, so that when they leave, they're leaving the town a top quality road, not a beat up road. That's the idea, but.
Is there this is going to sound probably odd, but is there an outfall? If the developer of the Willows was able to dewater the site during construction, if they could get a permit for dewatering, is there an outfall somewhere they could direct that water to? Do you know, Russell?
No, well, there is a ditch that runs, as you can see, at the back of our property, which, as it's shown where we had it site plan, it would actually be like in the floodplain.
Okay.
And there is a large ditch that feeds off that, and there currently is a stormwater management facility that's constructed adjacent to our site. So the Willows, I'm assuming, the topography will eventually run that way. I've not seen the design for why the water's flooding
Are
towards
you
it.
familiar with the topography of the site?
I have been to the site, yes.
Are you going to be involved in the design of the stormwater plan for this site?
Oh, yeah, Bobby and I, yeah.
Do you know which way the water is going to be directed in the site?
This site has quite a lot of relief, and what happens.
So explain that to the board.
The site is, the topography or the elevation of this particular site, the roadway, as you'll see the residential lot that's out front, we have a skinny road, piece coming back. That actually would drain towards Maple, which we would have to accommodate for any runoff off of that. But the majority of the site itself has probably a 2 to 2.5 foot drop from that straight to this drainage.
The back
slope.
property line.
The back property line.
And so that's the
So
direction. Okay.
all the rooftop, our internal roads, that is shown on here will be draining not towards Maple Avenue, but towards that outfall, the ditch that runs along our rear property line.
Is the water backing up from the Willows project back up Maple Street?
What it made it worse than that came in because the building broke in tons of dirt, like I said, and elevated so high that when it rains and that water comes down, it was already a problem.
It was a problem before the Willows started, now it's worse.
This made it worse.
Okay.
And that street is just not designed for that kind of density.
I understand, but you're hearing what they're saying,
Yeah,
that on this particular piece of property, it's downhill from Maple, and on their site, it's downhill away from Maple further on the backside of the property.
that's worse.
Well, what they're saying is, this project is not going to contribute any backflow to Maple Avenue. Because it's downhill
It'll
from
go
Maple.
the other direction.
It's going the other direction.
What way?
It's going to go away from Maple.
To the back of the property.
This project is not going to contribute.
So what ditch or street is backing your property?
It's just.
Where the offline wetland is, behind the multipurpose building, that direction?
Because that backed up to there, or one probably there too.
This back area here, this is
Oh,
all.
that's like the motherfucker.
Yeah, here's Maple Avenue out front here, here's the Willows at the end. So all our lot, this front part is just gonna have the road, that's it. All the buildings in the house are draining that way to this large ditch. So you have.
That ditch is a problem right now.
And that's, you know, that's the ditch that even feeds this large,
Yeah.
this was constructed, you know.
Right? So
Yeah.
it
But
just needs.
and the site has such a drop, if you're standing on one spot at the top, when you look, it has close to 2.5 foot of fall, so it's just, we're not gonna be building the site up for it to drain anywhere close to Maple Avenue. You know, and then,
People, wow.
yeah.
Who maintains the ditch that's going to be running through? Is that a public ditch or is that a private?
Which ditch are we talking about?
Any of them, they don't mean.
The one when he said all the water's going to go to the ditch on the back side of the property.
The ditch between Bay Terrace and their property,
Yes.
who maintains that ditch?
Is it a public one or just a convenience?
The property owners maintain that, we don't.
Which property owner, Bay Terrace or?
Usually it's shared, you know, by the adjacent property owners. It would depend on the property, the parcel lines, I can't tell from this.
Let's keep passing the buck, nobody will maintain.
No one's passing the buck, but the way the town code reads, if we don't own the property, we don't maintain it.
I think.
Although we do, in many cases, go out and go on a limb and spend money and spend man hours and do fix them.
I think.
But we're not required to.
I think what'll happen is, as a condition of any site plan approval and building permit, obviously there will be an accompanying stormwater management plan.
Correct.
There will be a homeowners or condominium association responsible for the maintenance and upkeep of this property as part of this project. The condominium declaration, standard language obligates the condominium association to maintain the stormwater facilities on that property. So it would actually be the condominium association once the project is started. And they would have the responsibility for maintaining that part of the stormwater component. And that's the case with any condo project.
But for the immediate problem, that ditch and this project are not a contributing factor to the flooding of Maple Avenue.
Correct.
That's what I'm hearing.
Right.
And will not be contributing at all.
Excuse me?
And it won't be a factor.
And it won't be a factor while it's being developed, because you're downhill.
It's going to go the other direction.
You're not going to be bringing dirt in or filling anything.
And there's no issue with the runoff going wherever it is going, causing a problem in that land, that area?
It's not, by law, it's not allowed to. The stormwater plan is supposed to assure that. You're not supposed to allow your stormwater to run off on neighboring properties.
And that's just every project. We
Right.
require that. All we can do is have faith that it's going to be done right. So
Exactly. And if it doesn't work, then the engineer and developer has to fix it. And it sounds like that may be what's happening.
Exactly. But all I'm concerned about is, and I'm hearing around the board, that this project is not going to contribute to any flooding on Maple Avenue. And that's all I want to hear for now on this project.
So there are no stormwater facilities in this proposed site plan?
No.
No, there doesn't need to be, there's no.
There'll have to be.
It'll have to be prior to building.
Okay, so that will happen.
it's a necessary condition.
Oh,
You just don't have it on here because it's not engineered. Okay.
that would be required no matter.
Yeah, I just don't see it here.
No.
If we were that far, that you can't go on to that
No,
extent.
and we wouldn't spend that money until we got
Right.
beyond today.
Right. And it will be somewhere down along the floodplain line.
Yes.
How about lighting?
In regards,
Do they have a copy of that, Bob?
Yeah, we
should.
We do. That's my issue,
In the back?
right here.
Okay. all right. My fault.
Generally, we want only downlighting, and from what I see here, it would allow light to go up. Am I correct?
Well, yeah, and I was basically showing a style that the lighting designer recommended, but
Okay.
if you read, the lights are totally directional. They would be LEDs and they can direct it.
Is this part of the globe clear?
I don't, this is, I told them the style we were looking for, and they have, and if I knew how to read this, I'm not,
Yeah, well,
it was sort of how it's pointed and, yeah.
This is not pointing anywhere. This is just a globe with maybe a cap on it.
Right.
It needs to point down. It needs to
Yes, correct.
shed light only down.
Yes,
And
yes.
this appears to not do that.
Well, it's the LEDs inside that are reflected or directed.
So there's a LED with a cap on it inside.
You know, it's inside that,
It's inside the globe?
yes, is my understanding.
So there, okay, well, we would have to be assured that there wouldn't be any uplight.
Yeah, and that's what this, and I don't know how to interpret this.
Right,
I'm not
right.
trying to-
This is just a
But
rendering.
it was designed by a company that does large commercial projects all over the country, and they said this is a national sort of standard and everything, and the direction, and
What are you looking for?
which,
Just simply downlighting.
You want downlight?
yeah,
Downlighting of it.
You don't want the light, you don't want a glow.
There's no reason for light to go up.
right, and
We
that's
have
what.
this proliferation of uplighting in town these days. We got
Okay.
people shining lights up on their house.
Yeah, no, these,
Like vanity lights around.
and the way they explained it to me is, it's based on a residential, getting the light to the ground and not in somebody's bedroom window or,
Well, why don't we do this? If there is an approval, condition the
Yeah,
approval, and you
condition upon-
reviewing and approving the lighting.
Yeah.
That's all. So,
Yeah.
just what here doesn't look like.
I got you.
yeah, and.
Just on what you presented doesn't look like.
Right, I was just trying to, yeah, but they were clear, obviously in the days world, they can direct in almost any direction, but they were clear that this is for residential use of not creating the situation you're,
Okay.
so.
And then Mr. Kitchens had discussed with Jim Lawrence and myself, the electric utility director, using the Victorian lights that match what we have throughout town. So I don't know if that's still a possibility.
We've been researching that.
Yeah.
And basically, this is what we have now. They're trying to get that, I just didn't get it in
All right,
time.
let's just do
Yeah.
this. We will resubmit more detailed lighting
More
plan.
detail, yeah, that's all. we
Yeah,
need.
that's
We want
fine.
More detail.
Okay.
So cut sheet.
Now that we know, well,
Yeah.
now that I know what you want.
Right.
Now, is it possible to do a kind of a traffic study on this, on Maple Avenue? I'm not familiar with it, but I know we approved the other project, which doubled the size of the
You
amount of
could,
people using that road, and this is gonna,
you could make that a condition.
yeah, I mean, I'm not sure, I'm not.
It wouldn't be
sure what I'm looking at.
something that the town would perform, no. You could make it a condition that they provide that.
Yeah,
This sidewalks on one side of that street, like I said, it just needs some work done. You know, and a resident,
Yes.
Mrs. Purnell, is the biggest concern with the road, the height, the elevation of it, meaning the road needs to be?
Mr. Frank, he lives there now, maybe he can explain it.
Yeah, okay, is there anybody from out here would like to speak?
Oh, Mr. Purnell.
Yeah.
If I may,
You can.
Come right up here if you want. Yeah.
I think what Mrs. Purnell is trying to explain is that there's an issue with the road bed and the way the grade is on Maple Avenue, period. She's talking about stormwater management because of the water flowing from Flower Street down Maple Avenue, from Elizabeth Street down Maple Avenue. And this project, even though it's designed to flow toward Bay Street, is what I'm taking from that. There still has to be a construction, and there's no stormwater plan to show where the water is going to go. We've got the problem from down on the end, the Willows, I think this is what they said, And that was also approved, but we've got a problem with it. And so, hoping that this project doesn't contribute to that. And then there's also the amount of traffic. That was, I was born and raised on Maple Avenue, and it was just a little, little sleepy street. But now it's becoming like Flower Street. It's becoming, two-way traffic, all these apartment buildings and all of that. Is that area conducive to building all of these projects? And I think that's what our point really is. So it's not about one particular thing, it's about all of the things. Shouldn't there be a comprehensive plan from the town of Berlin maybe to see about all of these conditions, the road conditions, the water issues that exist right now? Because if you polka dot everything else around it, is it going to make it any better? Or is it going to make it worse? Death by 1,000 cuts. So I'm listening to what Mrs. Purnell is saying, and I think all of you are listening to her and see that there's a concern. I'm trying to voice it, put it in one little group of words, that there is an issue with doing everything down at Maple Avenue, and it's coming to roost. We've got the water problem, now we're going to add the traffic. So we need, development is good, but it's where you develop that makes the difference. So that's just a little Maple Avenue. Now you're going to put hundreds and hundreds of people going back and forth down there. And I'm not sure that this project, where it's going to be built, in the construction of it, is not going to affect that same issue Ms. Purnell talking about, water management. So I'm just speaking from what I'm hearing, and as a Maple Avenue, I'm saying it's a lot going on down on that little street, and you've already got problems. But we're not addressing the problem. We're just saying, well, he's not going to contribute to it. These guys are contributing, but maybe when they finish, they'll get it straightened out. If you go down Maple Avenue on the end and see the elevation of that other project and no water management now, that wouldn't happen in a lot of communities. So I just hope that the board considers that this is an addition to a problem that is already existing for the town of Berlin that hasn't been addressed. And I'm not going to say I'm for it or against it or whatever, but I think what you're not doing is listening to that there is a problem that needs to be addressed before you move forward. You don't move forward and then look back. He said it's going to be in and out. But you're gonna, the community association you're gonna deal with after that? Problems should be addressed before the beginning. This is what this board is about. So, I'm just saying my little piece here. I think that you need to address all of these issues before you keep adding to it. Because then what you're gonna do then is gonna be too big to go back to. So,
so there's what, I think, by law, these new projects have to deal with their stormwater. And I think the problem with the existing problem on the construction site is that, as Dave was explaining, during the construction, they are not allowed to outfall that siltated water. So it's a temporary thing with that, as long as everything's designed properly, and it usually is. What I'm hearing from you and Mrs. Purnell is that I think the concern is that Little Maple Avenue, where you were born and raised, was just Little Maple Avenue, and all of a sudden there's hundreds and hundreds of more people heading down Little Maple Avenue, which was never meant to accommodate. That's right.
That's right.
And that would be an issue with us, the town, in dealing with that situation. And what I know that's the fact. What you're saying is, how can you folks approve something when we know that this road was not built to handle anything other than
The
single-family
houses-
residences.
Exactly.
Right, right.
It's
That's
not
what I
maintained
hear.
to handle
Right,
anything
right,
more.
Right.
And
So-
that-
I'm
So
sorry,
in the
wait,
long
so-
term, you're gonna have to rebuild the road, redesign.
Right. I
And
think that's something
was
you
just
need.
built.
I think, you know, I don't know that we can put that on the individual developers themselves, but I think that's something that the town
I agree.
clearly needs
I
to
agree.
address.
That's what my point
Before
is.
we approve more stuff.
The development agreement says for Willows that they'll repave that street when they're done.
Well, that's,
Not to repay them.
what it is, I think a study needs to be done sometime to see what the impact of that street.
Right. And you know, one of the,
Like I said, we doubled up the Willows here, and you're gonna add this to the end of it, and just from these little pictures here, I wouldn't want to live here. You know, I mean.
Well, that's an issue, there's no doubt.
I know, and that's not the fault, but like this gentleman just said, we don't want to add to it, and
but that's during the storm.
I know.
What will happen, as Mr. Brunel knows, and Mr. Brunel, it's just gonna be traffic.
Plus the traffic is also.
It's traffic, and there's never been a traffic study in any of these projects that we're being asked to approve.
Yeah, that's what I'm,
School buses, utility trucks,
Yeah,
yeah, I mean, how does that
You could require a traffic study
and one
require a
side
traffic study before approval, correct? Or
as
Well, with
condition.
the addition of these projects, does the town then come in and bring up the street to the town, to the modern standards?
If it was a new street, it would have to be built to town standards.
No, but they don't.
But
they
the
don't-
town doesn't go behind any new development and redevelop the street, no.
Well, they redo streets all the time with new curb and gutter. I mean, when does that, when does that take off on a little street? I mean, this Maple Avenue looks pretty sickly. But, I mean, when do they take off and go ahead and modernize it with new guttering and the town, with new guttering and widen it and bring it up to town standard? What triggers that?
Usually
a traffic study.
or disrepair of the existing street, you know, it's falling apart, or it's
Yeah, I'm
it's
using,
damaged,
the
or...
town doesn't normally require a traffic study to determine what
I guess more of an
roads,
impact.
what roads need to be improved. They normally maintain town roads as they deem.
But what we're being asked to approve is a situation that will exacerbate, you have to agree, Mark, exacerbate a problem on a little,
I'm not disagreeing that if this project's approved, there will be additional traffic on this road. Obviously,
Yeah,
there's going to be
right,
additional traffic on this road.
right.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, I understand your point, because now you won't get this project built, but that's not our point. We want the problem fixed. Before any more congestion goes down that street.
What is the future potential development around that street? Are there large parcels that are going to be coming at us with more projects? I mean, are there other probable parcels of land that we're going to be hearing from?
I can't.
I know you can't, I'm asking the developers if they have.
Or you,
We already have problems.
I know, but I'm wondering how much more of a problem would we, and I mean, if we have a mass of land out there that needs to be accessed by Maple, then I think the town needs to start looking at a traffic study and addressing what's going on in it.
Yes.
If we don't have a whole lot of other parcels coming, that are likely to come down the pike, then we deal with what we're looking at.
How many people do you suspect will live in this project?
how many units is it? About
There's
30?
33 units, and right now the design is 2 bedrooms units.
So figure 33 families,
Yeah.
Yeah, 100 people.
or couples, whatever.
Yeah.
100 people.
70 cars.
Yeah,
66
twice that many
trips a
people,
day.
you know.
175
cars.
trips a day, so
And school
125
school
trips
buses,
a day.
trash trucks.
Right, right.
And the other
That's the
project
road
has
set up to handle
a
that.
community center and all that, to the other project, it's gonna be a lot of traffic in there.
How many units is the other
I was
project?
going to ask the same thing. How much is the other
66.
project? How many
66?
66,
And are they
units? 66?
townhouses?
yes.
Is it 66 new?
65 total units in one
It's
town, and one
what
clubhouse.
it previously was.
Too much for this.
It was 32 right now.
It's the size of this project now is double.
There was a
The Willow.
32.
Double, the Willows is double
That's
size.
exactly what it is.
66 and 33.
With no sidewalks down there.
I can't add on.
The sidewalk, No bicycle path.
Bicycle path for people. So how do you go, I'd like to require the request,
In the motion.
traffic study or something, I wouldn't feel,
No. No, I agree. I think
I
we
just-
would be remiss to not have a traffic study.
yes, I think the impact on that neighborhood and just the street alone, let alone the traffic and impacting the rest of, off to where Maple Avenue goes to Flower Street.
And we should have called this the previous project.
Well, that's, I think it's because it was already existing and
Well, we relied on engineers and everybody to do their job previously.
Well, there's two problems here.
Right.
I mean, there's the stormwater problem, which is not a problem for this project.
That's a temporary problem.
Okay, right, so stormwater is not a problem. It is, what is the impact of the volume of people we're putting down Maple Avenue? And what's the condition of Maple Avenue to handle it?
Yeah,
That's the problem.
that's the issue.
yes, that's what
That's where we are.
Yeah.
Well,
That's not-
the traffic studies should be on the town, when the town rezones land for commercial development, and it's accessed by a little dinky road like this, they should
That's
expect to
right.
have to do some kind of study or anything, and/or improve the road.
It's not been
well, it's
rezoned.
not commercial development, it's residential.
Well, you know,
It's multifamily zoning,
Yeah.
all of this property.
it should, I mean, it should be on the town to do the study and improve the street if they rezone this land for this kind of development. If they've allowed it to be rezoned, so it should be on them to run business services in there and infrastructure.
If you walk there, take a look at it. It's like a
Okay.
whole new town, that development that's been done there.
Well, there's a conundrum there too, as to when you hire a traffic engineer. Number one, do we want the developer to pay for a traffic engineer to represent Berlin to look at this? Or does Berlin want to, on its own, say, we need to see what's going on Maple Avenue, and Berlin funds it and hires their own engineer? Or do you want to say to the developer, you go hire a traffic engineer and tell us what's going on? I don't recommend that.
No.
You want the engineer working for the town.
Town.
Now, whether you're gonna make the developer pay for that engineer or not, that, or traffic study person is, so. I don't know, this is in that tricky area where you have a parcel of land with an inadequate road, and, you know, most of the time, towns wanna say, hey, developer, you wanna build, you pay for it. That's the usual routine, so.
Well, that's why I'd like to have that addressed and we can see it
So the
more
way to do
clearly in
it,
a couple of
It's not up
snapshots.
to-
But again, I would submit that if the town rezoned the land for this kind of development, then they should be responsible for the infrastructure to support it.
well, that's a good argument.
I agree, we should
It's
be
not
responsible for that, but not-
rezoned.
Well, in all candor, I'll say what I know he's thinking, because he's trying to make these a low enough priced unit, they're not high-end units. The cost of a traffic study, quite honestly, could put this under, and we just don't go forward, because that kind of study, if you done correctly, in all candor, that kind of study would be extremely expensive if you look at all the surrounding road networks, and you do that study correctly, like the town would want, it's probably way beyond the budget for the town.
In all due respect, that's, as you well know, that's not our problem.
No, I'm just
No,
telling
in
you
all
the
due
reality.
respect, that's,
No, I understood, but yeah, again,
I know I can't sit here in good conscience and ignore what I'm hearing, looking at this road without knowing where we're going.
Dave, do you know of any, I mean, how far out is the town plan as far as what roads are going to address year by year? Is this on the horizon in the next 5 years, 3 years? Do you know where?
We do have a road survey we did, you know, it's recent, you know, by our town engineer. But I can't say where it's on that master plan, if it's 3-year, 5-year, 10-year. I don't know that. One of the conditions of the development agreement with the Willows at the end of Maple Avenue was that when they leave, they repave Maple Avenue from there to Flower.
So the only improvement the Willow developer is going to make is just repaving, like a new top coating? They're not widening it, they're not
widening it, they're not tearing up and destroying what's there and building a brand new street.
they're just
repaving it.
they're basically repairing what they did during the construction.
Right, or whatever damage is there now,
Yeah.
because it hasn't been repaved in many years. So, they're gonna repave. You know, when they do their entrance and all their parking areas, they're gonna go right on out to Flower Street.
But when they repave it, by the very nature of doing that, they're going to increase the elevation of it. In other words, unless they go in there and remove what's there, they're adding to what's there. So to some degree, the road will end up of a higher elevation than what it is right now.
Normally, that's the case, yeah. And they're not gonna, they're not
And
gonna.
then where the water going?
How's that going to address traffic?
Yeah, it's a traffic.
It was, I'm just talking about-
Right, right, I know, well, that's our concern.
Right.
So that's not addressing.
No, but what it would do is somewhat address the flooding, because the lower the elevation of the road, the worse the flooding, it will increase the height of the road a bit. That's not gonna do a darn thing about traffic.
I don't know, the pictures I saw, looks like inches on.
Or Mark, have you been down there?
I have, but I'm going to. But your pictures, quite honestly, are very telling, yeah.
Yeah, you want to drive down during the rainstorm and see that, after you look at those pictures. Yeah. I think it's incumbent upon us to deal with this before we approve any more stuff.
But, you know, does that road flood on only extremely heavy rain events or just about any rain?
Any rain, that used to be just hurricane weather.
Right.
But since they build it up, like they build it down, any rain.
I know Old Bridge Road going down to where I am, there are times it floods horribly. But it's very seldom and only the most extreme events. But when it floods to the point where my truck can't even get to the end.
But some of their homes
But it's very
have
seldom.
water damage right now.
How old are those pictures?
Last rain.
Last rain. So,
No, the last time it rained, you know.
I'd like to, I guess, request a traffic study, impact study of that area before we consider.
All right, well, we're going to need a little more direction on that. A traffic study of that area, we'll need something more well-defined. What is the area that you want studied?
Say the Maple off on the Flower, Flower Street is really overrun now, isn't it, or not?
You know, it's another street that comes right there, Newland Street.
Yeah, I'm not, that's like I said, I'm not familiar with
It's taking a ride out there, Newland Street too.
the exact location of this, I don't know, but just from looking at the pictures and what's already approved and the quality of that road, it just doesn't.
I think we
It's not
should limit
meant to
that
handle
for the
that.
developers, I think we should limit that to Maple Avenue, that's what we're addressing here, we don't need.
If you're talking about a regional study, that we can't.
We don't need to go all over Flower Street there, but I think the town should do that.
I don't know that the
I agree
taxpayers
as well.
should pay for that. Why is the taxpayer going to pay
Well, it's a town road.
Because the town.
for that? But the taxpayer's not impacting the road any worse than it is now.
The town rezones the land to get more tax base, and that's what tax dollars are for, is to improve the infrastructure for the building that they rezoned the land
You
for.
gotta start thinking about
Yeah, but
that.
the
It's all this
contractors,
land
money,
that
the developers, they have money.
And they tell us about the Willow, is it
Doesn't matter.
in
You know, basically,
county?
the tax dollars have responsibility for the infrastructure.
To put it in, not
What they allow.
If we're not, if
What, in
the
back of
project's
Willow?
impacting.
Beckel Willow, is all that in town, that doesn't run into the county.
To the left of the Willows, that's in the county. It's not in town. Goes out, that's Stoltz property, and goes all the way out to Bay Street, has big road. That's in the
They
county.
rezoned land and promised zero water, they got to run.
The back of the Willows comes out, and that's, all of that Willows property is in town, but that's the last piece.
I guess, could you work with him to see,
Yeah.
it's Maple Avenue to Flower Street, I mean, I'm not talking the entire, 20-mile radius or anything like that, but just in that, obviously, the impacted area of that neighborhood.
I'll see.
And if the town could address on that second thought, and if the town could address what the flooding issue is, and how to solve that, especially if they want to
You're
build
gonna
the
bear,
cottage.
he's aware of it.
Well, all that water's gonna drain away from there, but that puddle's gonna sit there. That's,
All that,
I understand his project's gonna drain where, away. This is still here,
Maybe instead of painting basketball courts, it didn't need to be painted, that they should have, take that money and done a
Okay.
traffic study on some of that road.
Don't bring that in.
Okay, you wanted
I'm
to
just saying,
say,
I'm just saying that money like that's used that really is not necessary. They should
They got
really.
money.
that's other money. Anyway, is there anything else you'd like to add to that, or?
Well, what exactly are we doing? Is the town going to look at doing the study at its cost? Or are we saying to this developer, bring us a traffic study that basically gives us the idea that Maple Avenue can handle this project and the Willows, and outflow from Flower Street is adequate. Is that what we're looking for?
I mean, I think the town should have the control of it, and the contractor, the developer should pay for it, and the town hires the person, so it's not, you know, I mean, I don't.
Right, hard going.
I think the town should hire it, the town should pay for it.
I'm gonna give you on that one.
What is that?
Just saying.
If I could have a minute to say something, every time I attempt, somebody interrupts me.
Go right ahead.
So I will say, we cannot encumber the town to pay for it at this meeting tonight. Your board does not have the authority to
Yes.
make the town pay for this.
We understand
We
that.
can look into it. The easiest thing to do, I believe, at this juncture would be, I will look into it with the town's engineer. How much of that road survey data we have that might tell us what a traffic study would tell us. I don't believe at the time they did a full-blown traffic study, like where they have trip counters on a street and they have observation of daily of, you know, what's the heaviest time. Usually it's 7 to 8:30 in the morning because of school buses and people going to work. And then back again from 3:30 to 5:30 when school buses and people returning from work. But I don't believe we had any of that. It was more for the condition of our roadways, so we would know what we'd have to spend every year on roads, sidewalks, curb and gutter for the next 20 years. That's what we were after, you know, how much we had to put in our budget for those things, and how much we could afford every year. So something like that, I don't think you can encumber the mayor and council. They're the ones responsible for spending the money. So I don't know how you want to do a motion, or if you're fine with every other aspect of the site plan, you could make it a condition upon however we come to a traffic study. But maybe the developer pays for it if you feel safer with making it the town's choice of traffic study coordinator or provider, that they pay for it. That's a condition you could make. Or you could let them provide a traffic study. I will tell you, the one that's probably in the area that we'd go to, that they'd go to, is the same one. It's the traffic group. You know, that's the professional one in the area that has people in line queued up to use. You've required that for the cannery in different projects, Oceans East in the past, you're forgetting. And that's who provided that study, was the traffic group. And also when we did the original Dollar General, you remember you required, your panel required a traffic study. And it was done by the traffic group. And then that one ended up, they moved the Dollar General over to Bay Street instead of being there by the hospital. So partly because of the traffic study, right? So we have done them, and you certainly could do that again if you think that's necessary. But the stormwater is borne out. Each site gets stormwater approval from our town engineers, EA Engineering, and the homeowners on the end of Maple who are being impacted right now have always had a somewhat of a flooding problem, like Ms. Purnell saying, in heavy, heavy rain. And it seems to be exacerbated right now. But that's because those MDE requirements, they're not finished yet there. That stormwater management was submitted and approved by our engineers that we have great confidence in, EA Engineering. And they have been out on site with us that I know of, that I've been present 3 different times during and after rains, and trying to work with the developer out there now, and MDE on the town's behalf, to let us leave those storm drains open, but they won't budge. So you have a regulatory agency that has precedence over the town of Berlin and our engineers that aren't allowing us to help solve that problem, or at least ease that problem right now. I'm well aware. No one is passing the buck. I'm not pointing that out, but we certainly have been involved with the owner of several properties at the end. He happens to own several properties at the end. He's most impacted Not that Maple Avenue isn't impacted in the gutters every time it rains, but and that might be something we have to look at. Everything there needs sidewalk, curb, and gutter. Carry the water better. It's true, but it all has to do with budget.
Why, I'm just curious, why won't MDE allow them to open the storm drains?
Because of the siltation that'll go downstream and further exacerbate the problem.
Yeah, you get the sediment builds up further downstream.
Yeah, I mean,
And they also have to, they are also always of the opinion, and again, I'm not disparaging anybody, but if you submitted a drawing with those storm drains covered,
Right.
it better be there when they get out there, or they shut the job down, or they shut the job
real
down.
quick.
And they're very, very specific, and I won't use the word inflexible, but they're very, if it's not followed to the letter, they can shut the job down, and that costs the developer time and money. You can't keep working. So that's where the problem comes in.
Well, you know, they're right too, because I don't want to see the creek, Trap Creek and all running red this summer.
Right, so the sediment flume.
So I'm glad they're hard.
That's a temporary
I
situation
can
that
look
we
and
have to
see
learn
how I can help them
Yeah, like the.
with what we have already.
Whatever the town would like to study, traffic study of Maple Avenue, and whatever at your discretion and at their expense.
Okay,
So you'll just table this for now?
Is that what you would like? Okay,
Table.
Yeah, I think that's best for them.
yeah. And it sounds like something that the mayor and council has to start to deal with.
Yeah.
Because it's going to be because it's a town road, and there's going to need to be improvements, and they're going to be maintained, so.
Well, yeah, but each year they have a menu of what
Yeah,
they're going to do.
I
What
just-
road gets it first is really, the roads that need it the most are the ones that are supposed to get work first, so.
It sure looks like this one needs it a lot.
Well, but that's, when they made the development agreement, they knew by the end of this year probably, they're going to have a resurfaced road, so it's off the list, right? So,
Well,
they made that a proffer, they made that a condition of approving it
yeah,
for the
everybody,
Willows.
you kill everybody.
Okay. So we're gonna,
Just table
I
it?
think that,
Yeah, I think so.
somebody in the town would, if they could address, if somebody in the town could address what they, to keep them moving along here, as far as what they need.
That's what I'm saying, I'll take care of that.
All right.
Well, I'll keep you
I think we're
informed.
the only people left in the world with masks in the state of Maryland.
I'll keep you informed.
Move that we table this project.
Thank you.
Temporarily, thank you.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you.
You get where we're coming from.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Dave, do you have anything new or exciting or?
No, thanks.
Is there any update on the Airbnb issues?
Yeah, what's the deal?
Is there any movement on the Airbnb issues, or is it still being worked on?
No movement, no current movement.
Is there any, I mean, I remember weeks ago, there was supposed to be a discussion at the mayor and council meeting, and it just never happened.
Well, we had the initial, they had a listening session
Well,
about a discussion.
But no one really,
Nothing since that first meeting, no.
but then there was supposed to be, as I read, an additional listening session where it was announced that they were going to talk about it, which it wasn't previously.
But nothing, no.
And it's just kind of fallen off to radar.
So on the
right?
radar right
Why is
there,
that?
yeah.
You know why that is?
No.
Yeah, we talked to council members, what we did.
I'd like to say that the kid that did his speed racer act through the town was staying at that very house I talked about 2 years ago. That's where he was staying.
The one next to mine?
The one, that one, up the street,
The one on 346.
yes, that's the, culprit place.
What's the update on Franklin Avenue? Anybody over
I
there?
don't have one. I don't. I haven't gone down to
Did you
court.
pay the fine yet?
No, but I haven't been down to court. Now I have to go down to the circuit court. I have not been down there.
But he ain't complied.
No.
All right, motion to adjourn.
Second.
Aye, opposed?
Yeah. That's it. Ms. Burnell, you want these?
Huh?
I'm not getting a bill either. Here.
Yeah, that.
More pictures.
Here.
Also, we bought a building. I will not spend any time early in the morning, but when I'm used to.